Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So, some backstory first. I work at a large grocery store chain. As someone who stocks groceries, replaces items that have been left or returned throughout the day, and various other chores around the store, it's a pretty small store, so most of the employees can do almost all of the tasks. So this particular night I was putting away a cart of items that customers decided they didn't want, overstock, or were damaged. There were a separate area where damaged items went, obviously. Now, I should preface this with the fact that I'm not completely deaf. I can faintly hear things like slamming doors, loud phones, and ringtones, and some things like that, though I cannot hear voices at all, even loud yelling. While I'm deaf, I know sign language. Have a large pin and lanyard that I wear that informs people that I am in fact deaf. In addition to this, I have a small notebook that has a variety of pre-written responses to questions, sort of like flashcards. Though communication is difficult sometimes, I try my best to make things work, and I'm very prepared. Most people are understanding, work with me, and we get through the conversation. Some kind people even sign with me. That always makes me smile. I am pretty young and don't look like the typical hearing impaired person. So when people sometimes get a little grumpy because I don't respond right away, they are very apologetic. Not this time though. This is where the story gets good. So I am mulling along one evening and decided to get an early start on the overstock from the day, which was filling a shopping cart to the max. Since this was earlier than I normally begin, there were more people still in the store as opposed to when I usually started. No big deal, I started anyway. About half a shopping cart later, I'm in a paper towel section where I feel someone roughly poke me in the shoulder. I jump and turn around startled to see this lady. She's taller than me and I'm no slouch. I'm 6 foot tall or 72 inches. She's very thin, probably mid-50s. Frizzy blonde hair only held back by a bright red hat atop her head. This back in September of 2020. And of course she doesn't have a mask on. She begins to what I assume was yelling, judging by the aggressive look on her face. I begin to point to my lanyard and ears, trying to communicate that I cannot hear her. According to the nice customer who I will introduce in a moment, she was saying things like, "I am talking to you. I've been trying to get your attention for 5 minutes." She then takes a step forward and grabs my lanyard, yanking it violently, and it gets unsnapped from around my neck, and she throws it to the ground. At this point, I am very nervous and beginning to panic. I try to actually say that I can't hear, but I'm not sure how it came out, as I've never actually heard my own voice. My soulmate says it sounds very cute, however. It's at this point the nice customer enters the picture. I see him around the corner. A 30-something-year-old man, I assume, rounds the aisle and walks up to this crazy Karen, asking what the problem was. This is all what he wrote down for me, saying what he said after the incident. The nice customer looks over to me and I frantically point to the pin on my mask and grab my notebook and scribble down, "I am deaf and I don't know why she's yelling at me." The nice customer turns to the crazy Karen and they exchange some words. Things like, "Can't you see he's deaf? Why are you yelling at a kid like that?" And responses like, "He's not deaf. He's just ignoring me because he's a lazy little jerk." This goes on for a few minutes and I finally begin to cry, as this has caused a scene with people starting to surround us. It finally attracted the attention of my 2 managers. The store manager walks up to me while the regional manager walks to the nice customer and Karen, who have now really started shouting at each other. Store manager knows sign language and asks me if I'm alright. I say I am and wipe the tears from my face and grab my lanyard from the ground. The store manager tells me to grab my things and wait for her in the employee break room. About 15 minutes later, both managers walked in with a police officer. The crazy Karen had been arrested. The store manager explained to me in sign language that the crazy Karen had been arrested for third-degree assault, and the officer needed a written statement and asked if I wanted to press charges. I happily say yes and gave my statement. The nice customer stuck around and I wrote him a thank you note. The store manager also gave him a gift card for being an upstanding citizen. That was by far the worst experience I've ever had with a customer. But I'm thankful that awesome people like this nice customer and both my managers exist. Also, the crazy Karen got sentenced to a few months in jail, probation, and was fined a hefty amount. This happened way back in the dark ages, 1986. I was 21 at the time and working for a gas station that was associated with a certain grocery store chain in Washington state. It was owned by a company not affiliated with said chain, but had locations at nearly everyone. As this was long before the days of debit cards, this was a cash-only gas station. We didn't even take credit cards. Customers would pull up, pump their gas, and then come to my window to pay. We also sold cigarettes. No drinks, no snacks. Customers couldn't even get into my booth. I had been working there for about a year when the company announced it was closing the location. My manager and I were offered positions at another location upstate that we both accepted. We moved our respective families and started our new jobs as new hires. This station was incredibly busy. We did more business in 8 hours than my old location would do in a week. This location also had a different setup. Here you would pull into the station from a single entrance, pump your gas, and then drive forward to a single exit where the Pay Here booth was located. There were always 2 cashiers on duty. Each cashier had a cash drawer. One thing I should note, there were also no computers, so closing the drawer down between shifts was time-consuming and tedious. We had to manually count the cigarettes remaining and count the cash drawers. We would fill out an end-of-shift report listing the starting balances and the ending balances. We also had to list the gallons sold from each pump. At the end of the shift, the total of the gallons sold and the total cigarettes sold should equal the cash balance. It's important to note here that not once in a year that I had worked for the previous location had I been off by more than 10 cents. The following morning, after my first shift, I was informed by my manager that I was short $50. Impossible, I said. I balanced out yesterday. He said that I must have stolen that money after I had completed the paperwork. I just looked at him and said, no, I didn't. He gave me a verbal warning and said if it happened again, I would be fired and the stolen money would be deducted from my paycheck this week. In the 5 days that followed, I realized quickly the manager was up to something. My old manager, who was just another worker now, was also accused of stealing, as was one other new employee. I can't vouch for the other employee, but I'm pretty sure she did nothing wrong. The employees that had been there a while were never accused of anything. I did some checking and found out this manager was relatively new, had only been there about 6 months, and the other cashiers had been here before him. Only new cashiers were being accused of stealing, and that location had been having stealing problems for about 6 months, and the turnover was high with the new employees. I came to work at 6 a.m. on a Monday only to be told I was being fired. The manager accused me of taking $500 out of my drawer the previous Friday. He said he only discovered it this morning, even though he had worked Saturday and Sunday. I said okay and left. I was pretty angry, and instead of going home, I parked in the grocery store parking lot and proceeded to settle in to watch the gas station. I knew that at 9 a.m. sharp, he would take the cash in the safe and make the weekend deposit. At 9 a.m., he left the gas station and headed to the bank. But instead of walking into the bank, he walked into the Indian casino next door. It's not really a casino like we think of today, but more of a betting parlor for the races. It did have slot machines, but no card tables. I think, well, this is interesting. He comes out of the casino at exactly 10 a.m., walks next door to the bank, does his business, and then heads back to the gas station. And I head home with a plan. Every morning I follow him from the gas station to the casino. I take a picture of him leaving and one of him arriving at the bank and walking into the casino. I take pictures of him coming out and then heading to the bank. I do this for 5 days straight. He even went on Saturday. On day 3, my old manager was fired for stealing $150. I get the film developed, note digital camera in the dark ages, note the times and dates on the back of each one. Then I call the main office of the gas company. It's after 5, but I'm hoping someone is there. And there is. I speak to a woman and explain my situation, and she says that she knows exactly who I should speak to and transfers me. By some grace of God, she has transferred me to none other than the president/CEO of the company. I tell him my story and tell him that I did not steal from his company and could prove who actually did. He took down my information and said he would be in touch. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right. The next morning I went to the station to perform my usual observation of the manager. At 9 a.m. he leaves for the bank, and at 10 a.m. he comes out. At that moment, 2 stern-looking gentlemen approach him. One pulls out his wallet and shows him something. The other one is talking. The manager goes pale and takes a step back. Next thing I know, he's being escorted to a car I hadn't noticed, and they drive off. I lose him at a traffic signal, so I head back to the station. They all show back up about 5 minutes later, and a few minutes after that, a police cruiser pulls in. The officer talks to the stern gentleman and proceeds to place the manager in handcuffs. The other man says nothing but is glaring daggers at the manager. The president called me later that afternoon and informed me that the manager had been arrested for embezzlement. Turns out that in 6 months he had managed to steal about $5,000. He would take the store cash into the casino and gamble with it. If he won, he would make the normal bank deposit. If he lost, he would make the deposit and note in his record that we had been short the previous day. CEO had already been focusing on that location because of the stealing and high turnover rate. But my information helped them figure out what exactly had been going on. I was thanked and sent a substantial check as a reward. My old manager was offered the manager's job, and I was offered my old job back. I declined as I had already found another job that I liked more and paid better. The gambling manager was sentenced to 1 year in jail and ordered to attend counseling for his gambling addiction. His wife divorced him and took their 3 children to California. His house was foreclosed on and he ended up in a homeless shelter. Don't accuse me of stealing. I will get revenge. This was a few years back when I was working in a pet store. The pet store has 4 roller shutters, 2 at the back and 2 at the front. So one day my manager told me to use a cloth and clean the roller shutters, front and back, before we opened the store for business. There was never enough time to clean all the roller shutters before we opened the store. Bear in mind that I arrived at the store at 7 a.m. to clean the cages, feed the animals, brush the cats and dogs to be well presented to potential customers, clean the glass partitions, mop and sweep the floor, restock and manage the cash register. The store opens at 8:30 a.m. and I barely made it in time every day. We only had 3 staffs at that time. So as I quickly finished all my morning tasks, I used the damn cloth to wipe the roller shutters in back and forth, sweeps like lightning fast just to make it in time for the opening. This manager had the audacity to scold and point at the roller shutter for not cleaning it before opening. And this is where I cue the malicious complaints. You want me to clean the roller shutters? Okay, fine. I pulled the back roller shutters down and I proceeded to the cleaning, inch by inch until it was squeaky clean. In between the cleaning, I had to wash the cloth several times to make sure that the water was clear. While I was cleaning, the store was filled with customers. I was nowhere to be found because I was at the back cleaning the roller shutters and blocked from everyone's sight. The line to the cash register was the longest I had ever seen. It took me a good 2 hours just to clean the back side. Oh, I was not done. I proceeded to clean the front roller shutters as well, pulling it down to clean it, blocking the entrance, preventing customers from entering and exiting the store. The customers inside the store had to exit from the back, and potential customers thought that the store was closed for the day. I took my sweet time, about 2 hours, to clean the front side inch by inch. By the time I reopened the roller shutters, the money made on that day was down by half. It was wanted. It was not my fault. You got mad for me not cleaning the roller shutters? I just followed what you wanted. It was the best day of my life. It's hard to match the malicious compliance of a teenage girl. I am my daughter's biggest fan. She's a skateboarder. She's a skateboarder on the robotics team. She is learning not 1, but 2 additional languages and gets good grades. She's so cool. She doesn't get it from me, and certainly not from her dad, who is also a huge dork. During the holidays, we typically have all kinds of jars of pickles and olives left over from parties or family dinners, because a tradition in my family is a relish tray. Basically, a collection of olives, different types of pickles, and other preserved foods, all arranged in a pleasing way on a fancy dish. Since I don't pickle things like my mother or grandmother, I end up buying a lot of small jars of various things to use. We don't usually keep olives around, so in our house, they are a special thing associated with the holidays or parties. Like most kids I've seen, my daughter loves olives. I still do. I know more than one occasion I've caught her eating them straight out of the jar with her fingers. Not a huge deal, but with hygiene on the mind, I kept asking her to stop doing that. I prefer she dump them in a bowl or plate or something like that. So just the other day I came into the kitchen and she's standing in front of the open fridge with her back to me. And I can see the open jar of pimento stuffed green olives in her hand. Sweetness! I've asked you several times to stop eating olives out of the jar with your fingers. But Mom, I'm using chopsticks. She locks eyes with me. As I break in eye contact, uses chopsticks to fish out another olive and pop it in her mouth. She had taught herself to use chopsticks just because. What can I do? She's too cool. In my family, we are known to be smart A's to each other. Like most families, and I personally never waste an opportunity to be one. My mom always liked to ask me, "What do you want to eat?" And I would answer the only way that was acceptable: food. She normally would roll her eyes and, on occasion, would ask, "What kind of food?" Which was meant with the answer of, "the good kind." This had gone on for as long as I can remember, and honestly don't know why she never caught on, but nevertheless I enjoyed it. Until just the other day. I had just gotten home, and currently she's staying with me since my dad is self-quarantining due to the thing we all know about. We talk for a few and talk about our days when she asks the questions. "What do you want to eat?" Me with a big grin. "Oh, food." She smiles back. "Oh, okay. I'll get started. Go ahead and get changed." This was weird, as there was no resistance, no complaint about me being a smart A, nothing, but I didn't think anything of it. I got changed and went back over to the table and sat down. She walked over with a paper plate, and then began opening a can of dog food, which plopped in perfect cylindrical shape, right in the middle of the plate. What? "Oh, you said food, but didn't specify what kind. So there you go. Enjoy." I have to say I am proud of the wit of that one. Well played, Mom. Well played. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.